Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Common Sense Academy. I'm your host, Joe Palmetto, Joe the Lawyer. Today, we're going to talk about a story out of Florida where the feds, the FBI, has stated a sovereign citizen was charged with arson, and he said he had the right to set fire in the Florida forest. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. It's Common Sense Academy. I'm your host, Joe Palmetto, Joe the Lawyer. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. It is a free way to support the show. Also, check out my show that I do that is on political issues, Libertarian Front. You can find the link in the description below. Now, before we get into this juicy story, and I have the criminal complaint from this incident that we are going to review, everybody raise your cup, your glass in the air. Drink with me. It tastes better when we drink together. Today, I am having a liquid death, which are like these fancy carbonated waters. All right, have a sip with me before we dig into this story. Cheers. It's like drinking a beer, except it's water. Okay, let's check this story out. So, a Jacksonville beach man is facing federal arson charges over a fire in the Osceola National Forest that a federal agent said the man insisted he was free to start. Justin Sorky, I'm going to assume that's the right pronunciation, was indicted last week after a run-in with U.S. Forest Service officer who reported Sorky had described himself as a sovereign citizen who was able to do his own burn in a part of the 260,000 acre forest within Baker County. Sovereign citizen, I always love to see the news's definition here. Sovereign citizen is a label adopted by a variety of people who argue America's government lacks authority to restrict their actions. That's a pretty solid and concise definition of sovereign citizen. Nice work, Steve Patterson wrote this article. A criminal complaint filed before the indictment, which carries a minimum sentence of 5 years in prison. Arson is no joke, especially in the wake of what's happened in California, and a potential maximum of 20 years if Sorky is convicted, said the Forest Service officer talked to Sorky on January 30th about a campfire he was burning near a controlled burn the Forest Service was performing to lower wildfire risk. After being told that he wasn't allowed to do a controlled burn, Sorky stated he was authorized to conduct a controlled burn because he is a sovereign citizen, said the complaint, which said Officer Durante Jordan left about 6 minutes after the encounter started. 2 days later, sorry, I got a little stunted in that sentence. 2 days later, a Forest Service fire manager sent the officer back out to check a report about a burn happening, even though the government's controlled burn had ended. I observed smoke and a low simmering fire in grasses, brush, and trees at the scene, Jordan wrote in an affidavit that comprised most of the complaint, adding that Sorky was close by and began walking away when the officer started citing his Miranda rights. Jordan and a Florida Wildlife Commission officer handcuffed Sorky and struggled to get him into the Wildlife Commission officer's car, the complaint said. At a hearing later in front of the U.S. Magistrate Laura Lothman Lambert, Sorky said he wanted to represent himself at trial, but a federal public defender will act as standby counsel in case he reconsiders, according to clerk's minutes from that session. Now, it appears they basically have him dead to rights here because he more or less admitted to the burn. He admitted to the burn, and he admitted that he was in the right to do it. So he's going to want to make a deal. And what he's going to want to do is get the federal prosecutor to waive that 5-year mandatory minimum sentence, because that's rough. But, arson is a rough crime, and, he's looking at least a couple years in prison. So let's take a look at the criminal complaint itself. Each one's a little different. I'm looking at this one here, and this is out of United States District Court for the Middle District of Florida, filed, I believe, on February 1st. All right, so let's get down here to the good stuff. Investigation. At approximately 2:32 p.m., and this is the law enforcement officer, I received information from U.S. Forest Service Assistant Fire Manager Officer, that's a mouthful, Wesley Woodrum. regarding a camper who was not in a developed campground, but near the area of an active prescribed burn of the forest. A prescribed burn is a planned fire, also sometimes called a controlled burn or prescription burn, used by the Forest Service to meet certain forest management objectives. Conducting a compliance safety check on the subject who was camping, I contacted a male subject identified as Justin Sorky, 1983. He's a year younger than me. I'm 42. He's 41. While meeting with Sorky, I asked him if he was familiar with the rules and regulations concerning camping on Osceola National Forest. Sorky said no. I then explained he was only allowed to camp 14 consecutive days, and he would be allowed to return after 16 days, pursuant to occupancy and use regulations. That's interesting. When I asked Sorky if he had an established fire ring around the active campfire he was burning, he said no. Sorky then advised the U.S. Forest Service he was doing a controlled burn. Why need the forest? I'm sorry. Let me read that again. Sorky then advised that the U.S. Forest Service was doing a control burn, and so was he. Who needs the United States Forest Service when a random camper can get out there and do forest management? I then told Sorky he is not authorized to conduct a controlled burn. Sorky then stated he was authorized to conduct a controlled burn because he is a sovereign citizen. And you know, he's not a good sovereign citizen if he actually calls himself a sovereign citizen. We all know that. My interaction with Sorky concluded at approximately 2:38 p.m. Now, how colossally dumb can you be to have an encounter like that with a Forest Service officer and then to go out and engage in your own controlled burn/arson? 2 days later, on February 1st, 2025, at approximately 2:34, I received a call from U.S. Forest Service Fire Manager Officer Woodrow regarding Sorky conducting a burn at the same location I previously encountered him on January 30th. Well, he waited 2 days. I arrived on scene at 3:05, again in uniform, observed smoke, a slow simmering fire, and grasses, brush, and trees at the scene. At the scene, I spoke with Matthew Heaney, U.S. Forest Service fire employee. When asked, Heaney stated he observed Sorky starting the fire. Well, they got a witness. Looks like he's toast, pun intended. On this day, there was no active Forest Service prescription burns in the area. Sorky was nearby at his campsite. When I contacted Sorky, I attempted to read his Miranda rights. That's when the oh shit light goes off in your head. As I did so, Sorky turned around in the opposite direction. After giving Sorky lawful commands to turn back around, Sorky attempted to flee on foot. I then gave pursuit on foot after Sorky. At one point, I lunged at Sorky, making him fall to the ground. Wildlife Officer Thomas Norris and I were able to place him in handcuffs. He was later placed in Norris's patrol vehicle. As Sorky was being put into the vehicle, he physically resisted by pushing against the door with his legs, which required the officers to grab his legs and bend them to secure him inside the vehicle and close the door. Shortly afterward, Sorky was interviewed. After being read his Miranda rights, which he verbally acknowledged, Sorky stated he attempted to do the Forest Service a favor. I mean, come on, bro. By conducting a controlled burn. When I told Sorky he was not authorized to conduct a burn, he stated he was able to do his own burn. Sorky also stated he had the authority and the knowledge to burn. I'm not a brain surgeon, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. Sorky is not an authorized representative of the U.S. Forest Service, not authorized by the agency to conduct prescribed burns. During my interactions with him, he stated, among other things, he tried to do the Forest Service a favor. He was a sovereign citizen, and he had the authority to do what he wanted. Don't we all? The facts discovered during my investigation and statements made by Sorky demonstrated he had the intent to damage or destroy, by means of fire, National Forest System lands, which is real property owned and possessed by the United States and its agency, the U.S. Forest Service. The Following 3 photographs taken on February 2nd are of real property damaged by fire at the scene. This is the burned down area. I don't know if something was there before, a structure or something. Doesn't look like it. Looks like it was just trees and brush, which thank God nobody was hurt. The problem is when you burn down a forest, it could get wildly out of control. Based upon my training, experience, and facts concerning the investigation above, there is probable cause to believe Sorky committed and attempted to commit arson in violation of 18 U.S.C. 844 F1. In other words, Mr. Sorky, you are in a world of shit, or should I say a world of toast. Excuse my language. This is the document here which states that the defendant agrees to seeks to represent himself. Defendant questioned regarding financial condition, allowed to proceed pro se, subject the outcome of Ferretta hearing. Court will appoint the Office of Public Defender as standby counsel, which means that lawyer will sit there and answer questions for him throughout the trial, which is an unenviable position to be in for a lawyer. However, that lawyer will at least get paid to go through this. I hope that this gentleman tries to make a plea deal. The courts are, as we all know, are not sympathetic to sovereign citizens, and nobody's going to be sympathetic to anybody who started a forest fire in the wake of the California wildfires, which raged for weeks and weeks and destroyed entire neighborhoods. My friends, the sovereign citizen juice, it's dangerous. It's poison. It's not good for the brain. It's not good for the body. It's not good for the soul. Stay away from it. I will try to check back in on this case to see what happened to Mr. Sorky. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into the Common Sense Academy. I'm your host, Joe Palmetto, Joe the Lawyer. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. Check out my political content and subscribe. It's called Libertarian Front, and you can find the link in the description below. All right, everybody. Adios.